What we have here is we'll do the answer key for critical and inflections points quiz that was taken during class. To start off, before we start doing any work, I want to start by organizing my paper. So we'll go ahead, since critical points has to do with the first derivative and inflection points is second derivative, I'm going to split my paper in half. That allows me to organize my work so I can follow what I'm doing. When I start, to find critical points, what we need to look at, we want to take the derivative of the function. In order to take the derivative, we're going to use the sum rule and our power rules. So the derivative is 3x squared minus 18x plus 15. And our critical points is when this is equal to 0, or when the derivative does not exist. Here, we're not going to worry about the does not exist because we don't have any denominators and we don't have any square roots. So there's no spots. Our polynomials are defined for all real numbers. So in order to start solving this, we're going to factor out a 3. We had x squared minus 6x plus 5 equals 0. We'll factor. That tells us that our critical points, we have x equals 1 and x equals 5. That's our first part. Next thing I want to do, using these critical points, I want to see when the graph is increasing and when the graph is decreasing. So what I need to do is look and see when the derivative is positive and when the derivative is negative. So to do that, we'll go ahead and draw a little number line for the 1 and the 5. One way to do this is now to plug in values into the derivative and see what the sign of the answer is. Another way to do it, since this is a quadratic, we know the graph is going to look like this. When we're above the axis, we know we're positive. When we cross the axis, that's when we're equal to 0. And I know this section down here is negative. So by solving for the zeros first, I'm able to draw my number line, and it'll be positive on this interval, negative, and positive. So what that tells me about the function, it tells us that f of x increases on the interval from negative infinity to 1 and from 5 to infinity. And that also means that f of x decreases from 1 to 5. So that's the first half of that. Critical points increasing, decreasing. The second part, what we want to look at is the inflection points. In order to find the inflection points, we're going to need the second derivative of the function. To find the second derivative, we just take the derivative of the derivative. So using our power rules again, we get 6x minus 18. So our inflection points happen when the second derivative is equal to 0. To solve this, I can factor out a 6. It tells me that my inflection point is at 3. At 3 is when my function changes from between concave up and concave down. The next thing we want to check is if it starts concave down or if it's starting concave up. We're going to do our number line analysis again. We'll plot the 3. Again, as before, one way to do this is to plug values into the second derivative. I can plug in 0, and I can plug in a number bigger than 3 to see what the sign is. Another way to do this, more conceptual, is if I look at the graph, that's what the graph of my second derivative is. At 3 is where I cross the x-axis, so I'm going to be positive on this side and negative on this side. That translates into our number line as positive values on this side and negative values on that side. So now looking at our function, what this tells us is that f of x is concave down on the interval from negative infinity to 3, and concave up on the interval from 3 to positive infinity. So there you have it. Here's our answer key. And we went through and did this, assigning points to the projects. If you're able to take the first derivative and tell me where the critical points are, that's +1. Doing your number line analysis, +1. Inflection points, taking the second derivative and finding the inflection points is +1. Your analysis is +1. And then writing out and identifying your answers at the end gives you +1. So this quiz is out of 5 points. On our 5-point grading scale, that's a 5 corresponds to an A, 4 is a B, 3 is a C, 1 and 2 are not passing. Thank you very much.